Good morning. We'll wait 2-3 minutes. Good morning. Good morning. Kishan, I have to reply to you. I know. I've seen your email. I'll reply by today evening. Good morning. Good morning. Vikram, there was a glitch. We'll get that sorted. I pointed out to the team. It should be sorted by today. Because alluvial plains were forming eventually. Meaning that they were in the process of formation. Good morning. That is not possible, Ankur. Cover first the NCRT, then R. Sharma. Mega, that is totally on your capacity. If you can remember Jainism, that will sort your problem. But if you really don't trust UPSC that much, then you can remember Buddhism, but that is totally your call. Subtypes of Buddhism, 3 types. Hinayan, Mahayan, and Vajrayan. Hinayanic, Buddha is teacher and no concept of bodhisattvas. Mahayanic, Buddha is God, bodhisattvas idol worship, Vajrayan, Tantra Mantra, and Buddhism. I'll wait 1 more minute and then we begin. Will the question be about recognizing among them? Yes, you will be given the consider the following 4-5 will be given. You have to recognize which is a Jain, which is a Buddhist. Tantric practices, Tantra, Mantra, Yantra, standard. Asian, that's okay, not a problem. Yes, Anjali will use it in this topic. Basically, I'm covering both ancient and art and culture together in a way. Okay. So yesterday we understood Buddhism and Jainism, and specifically we were able to understand what is Buddhism, its philosophy, its basic, what we call as 4 councils, the first, second, third, and fourth council. And thereafter we went to Jainism. We understood the philosophy and we understood the division and the subsects also. Now the only thing which was left was how Jainism spread throughout India. Buddhism as it is was a very popular, very important understanding. So Buddhism, you need to understand one thing very clearly, that the most of the questions come from this area, Buddhism and Buddhist literature. Buddhist literature I have with me. I will discuss that in art and culture. As soon as Jainism is over, I will take some certain previous year questions and then move into Alexander's invasion and module number 4. Because as I told you, if we cover till Buddhism and Jainism, we can take certain questions. And I know the source of confusion for that Nirvana, Nibbana thing is one of the questions. I'll tell you how that's a trick question to answer, but we will see that. We'll see that. So, with regards to Jainism, as I told you yesterday, Mahavira, when he was operating, when he was alive, Jainism was now getting institutionalized, but the way it went forward, was that he had 11 very important disciples. Mahavira had 11 very important disciples who are called the Ganadharas, basically heads of school, 11 different heads of school. And by the time Mahavira dies, the only one who is left is a person called Aryasudharma. Aryasudharma is the only Ganadhara who is left by the time Mahavira dies, and he is the first preceptor, or the one who takes Mahavira's Jainism forward. He is called the first Thera. First Thera. So basically, you have Mahavira. After Mahavira's death, the first Thera, the one who takes everything forward, is Aryasudharma. Preceptor means the one who takes forward. And he will die 20 years after Mahavira's death, and he will have two more disciples who will be seen as the next Theras, who will be Sambhu Vijaya and Bhadrabahu. So Sambhu Vijaya and Bhadrabahu are the two second and third Thera who take it forward. And by the time Bhadrabahu comes through, you will have Jainism now becoming a very important religion in the political sphere. Udayan was, in a way, the first major ruler to be Jain. As we know, after Bindusara, after Ajatasatru, we have Udayan, first major Jain ruler. Thereafter, when Alexander will come to India, as we will discuss very soon, on the banks of the river Indus, we will find Jain monks. They are referred to by Alexander. And Chandragupta Maurya will be the last major ruler who will basically be a Jain. It was Bhadrabahu who will basically convince him to become a Jain and go to south. And Mathura and Ujjain will become the two major centers of Jainism. So generally, when we talk about our story, we have come quite a long way from Paleolithic to Mesolithic to Chalcolithic to the early historical period. What is now going to be taught is basically the module number 4, which is Mauryan dynasty. In this, we have to understand Alexander's invasion, or what is called Macedonian invasion, then move to Mauryas. Within Mauryas, we need to know three basic things: political, administrative, and Dhamma. This part is a little bit factual that I've already told you, the last major factual sector of ancient India. Now, before I do that, I'll take the previous year questions, because till this point, we can take certain questions. That is why I was not able to take it on Friday, because Buddhism, Jainism, you get a lot of questions. We'll discuss. Alexander is a European, yes, a Macedonian. So let me take the questions and we'll use the polling feature. Yes, okay. So question number 1, now pay attention. Which of the following statements are applicable to Jain doctrine? The surest way of annihilating karma is the practice of penance. Every object, even the smallest particle, has a soul. Karma is the bane of the soul and must be ended. Come on, you have to tell me which is the right answer. I'm giving you a minute. Read it out, read it properly, and then answer. For 2023, the latest paper I'll take once all of these questions are done. 2023, both medieval and ancient questions, I'll take it together. Basically, I'll not divide it like this thematically. Rather, I'll take it as one go itself, the latest paper. And one more thing very important, 2022 is an anomaly year in which the questions are extremely high when it comes to the level vis-a-vis history optional level. We'll discuss that also. 2022-23 separately. And see, it's only been 24 hours. It's not been a long time that you've done this. So I expect you to write the right answers. Okay. So 6% A, which is problematic. 40% B. I don't know why you have, if you've gone with that option, why you have attempted not to taking one with you. 44% totally correct, which is D, which is 1, 2, and 3. Now, first and foremost thing, this question is not of history but of English literature, because there are very big words which have been used, and that is why it makes it difficult to understand. Now, let's be very honest. Let's go with the statement which is the easiest here. Every object, even the smallest particle, has a soul. This is totally correct, and there are only two options in which 2 is available. So automatically 1 and 3 automatically get eliminated. The A and C get eliminated. Though now you can't do this because there is that pair 1, pair 2, pair 3 type thing. But previously it used to be like this only. Elimination. Now, a lot of you have rejected 2 also. And in rejecting 2, what you've done is you've gone with this concept that every object means a non-living cannot have soul. But I told you that in Jain philosophy, object is referred to everything. So be it living, non-living, they are, according to them, everything has a soul. So the people who rejected 2 are basically overthinking, and you have to stop doing that. Thereafter now comes 1 and 3. See, the people who have marked, for example, C, you are accepting 3 is correct, but basically 1 and 3 are interconnected. I told you that according to Jain philosophy, karma is not something good, it's a sin, and it needs to be removed. So it says karma is the bane of the soul and must be ended. Bane means you have boon, you have bane. Basically, it's a curse on the soul and must be ended. Now, if this statement is correct, this has to be automatically correct, which is that the way to annihilation means to destroy this karma, to remove this karma, is the practice of penance. Penance means is to self suffer. So if this is correct, this has to be correct because these two are interconnected. So 1, if it is correct, then 3 has to be correct. If 3 is correct, then 1 has to be correct. The simple point is all 3 statements are correct. They are not very difficult statements if you read them with the meaning. If the first statement would have said that the way to destroy karma is to practice self-suffering, karma is the curse on the soul and should be ended. Now these statements totally change. So here UPSC was just checking your vocabulary and not your understanding of Jain doctrine. So you have to sometimes also see that UPSC plays with the words, and that is something which they always do, and they will always keep on doing. So this question is not difficult if you know basic philosophy of Jains, which I've already told you in that regard. So 44% of you totally correct. 40% of you have to understand if you're marking 3 as correct, then 1 has to be correct because they're interconnected statements. You accept that karma is a problem for the soul, then why are you not accepting the fact that karma needs to be then changed through self-penance? Are we clear with regards to why this question is what it is and what is the problem with it? Yes? Okay. Now, which of the following statements characterize the people of Indus Valley civilization? They possess great palaces and temples. They worship both male and female deities. They employed horse-drawn chariots in warfare. Okay, everyone answers. 65% totally correct. 13 and 18 and 4%. There are, yes, 7 lectures, Madhur. They employed horse-drawn chariots in warfare. They had no evidence of warfare. So 3 is incorrect. Thereafter, they possess great palaces and temples. They had no temples. They have both male Pashupati, female mother goddess. So we have not seen any temples and we have not seen any warfare evidences. This is a very easy question. Very easy question. Which female deity? Mother goddess figure. The example of horse has been there, but no example of warfare. Yes. So there is again this point, Aditya, is you are overreaching. If there is a horse, that's okay. But warfare we've not seen. And if warfare we've not seen any chariots in that regard. This is not an art and culture question. It's a proper ancient question. Great palaces also we've not found. But maybe assembly hall could be a palace. The more striking point is temples. That is why they gave both. They gave both. So, possess great palaces and temples, male and female deities. Yes, this is incorrect. This is incorrect. These type of questions you should get it, because these are very easy questions, and these type of questions are actually made in that regard. In the citadel, if you want to see citadel as great palace also, still the temple aspect is wrong. That is why the examiner made it like this. Who is the male deity? Pashupati Seal. I told you Pashupati Seal is a male deity. Drawn bullock carts was there, but there is for trade. It yet has no evidence of warfare. Yes, Ilma, that is the story. We have carts, we have a lot of different other type of vehicles which have been found, but no warfare related any form of evidence. Not even swords and not even proper headgear and all has been found. So there's no evidence of that. Okay, now this is the question which would haunt you for 1 month. So rather, let's take it right now only. 2013 question, as quoted by a lot of you. Which one of the following describes best the concept of nirvana in Buddhism? The extinction of the flame of desire, the complete annihilation of self, the state of bliss and rest, a mental state beyond all comprehension. And here, again, this question, UPSC is playing a game. Now, you first, I want you to see if you can understand that game or not. Come on, everyone. I'm giving you ample amount of time. You have to answer these questions. As always, between A and B, it's always there. A, B, 3, 13 and 7. I'll discuss. See, UPSC basically is again giving you a type of literature type question. But here there's a game. The extinction of flame of desire, we call it Nibbana. This is what is Nibbana. Nibbana is when the metaphorical or what we call as in a way symbolic flame of desire has been extinguished. Complete annihilation of self means to destroy oneself. A state of bliss and rest, and mental stage beyond all comprehension. These statements are just vague statements which the UPSC did not have any other option to put in. So it's rather a state of bliss and rest. This is not good. Bliss means happiness, something which Buddhism is not looking for. And state beyond all comprehension is a vague statement. Now there's two options which are left. Now see, it says which of the following best describes the concept of nirvana. Nirvana means to get moksha. Right. Now, to get moksha, what is the precondition to get moksha? What is the precondition to get moksha? The precondition to get moksha is that you follow Buddhist philosophy and in a way you kill all desire. So for moksha, nibbana is a precondition. Nibbana is a precondition for moksha to happen. Try to understand this point. Only when your desires die, you will become disattached with this world, you will get moksha. So to attain nirvana, nibbana is important. I always told you that nibbana comes first and then comes nirvana. So the answer becomes A for a simple reason, because first you extinguish the flame of desire. Then you go for moksha. So nirvana can be seen as when the extinction of flame of desire is done, which is nibbana is achieved, then you get moksha. The problem with the second statement is very straightforward. Problem with the second statement is there is nothing in Buddhism which says that you destroy your own self. Complete annihilation of self. This may have been true for Jainism to some level, but for Buddhism, there is no reference to self-penance at the highest level. Because complete annihilation of the self doesn't even actually define death. Death is not annihilation of self. It is the end of life energy, or when the soul moves on. So this question, the problem is that what they've done is they mixed up the two things, nibbana and nirvana. And in an implied way, they have asked the question, how can you define nirvana? Now, again, this type of question you will get incorrect if you don't understand the statement itself. C and D are vague statements. They are not made to be there. Nibbana leads to nirvana. Yes, in a way, that is the point. Only nirvana can happen when nibbana you have achieved, which is your desire has gone away and therefore you now are ready for nirvana. And see, I will tell you one thing very clearly. Online, everywhere you will see they will use nirvana and nibbana interchangeably. However, the Upinder Singh, which is the most important book when it comes to ancient India, it makes a very clear distinction about these two things. But more than that, this question is English comprehension, and that is the problem. This is the problem. These are English comprehension questions. That do you understand? This would look good in a CSAT paper, but not in ancient India. So the UPSC has this tendency to do this, which is play a game with the students vis-a-vis playing with the words in that regard. So you didn't told precondition, you said they were different. Megha, they are different. Because if I don't tell you they are different, then you will mix both nirvana and nibbana, which is basically they're different. Precondition, now you want me to teach you according to this question. That obviously I will not do. I want you to understand what it is. This is the application of knowledge. Nibbana leads to nirvana. 3 times I said yesterday that nibbana leads to nirvana. Only when you get nibbana, then you get nirvana. So in a way, I did not use the word precondition or pretext. So that is still implied in what I am saying. So these are very two different things. But the point is, okay, let's take the aspect that I said that there are two different things. Are any other statements fitting nirvana? You use your logic like that. In sometimes UPSC, what happens is maybe that statement is not fully correct. But there is no other option but to go with that statement. This is the conundrum we have here. This question in a way has actually been made in the wrong way. Like one of you, the UPSC examiner picked up Wikipedia and opened it and made this question. And the problem is that this question is problematic in itself. So because this question has not been made with the depth it should have been, the examiner by putting C and D automatically was clueless whilst making this question. So rather, don't go by these words extinction, annihilation. These are distracting words. Obviously, you cannot get nirvana without getting nibbana. Nibbana is what is the most important concept. If it had said Mahaparinibbana, then it would be the death of the enlightened one. So understand this point. This question is made in a problematic way. It's an application based question. In the dearth of having a more apt option, the UPSC's justification for this type of question would be that we are basing it on application and implied concept. Again, Mahaparinibbana would not be B. Complete annihilation of self is a positive thing or a negative thing? Complete annihilation of self has a negative connotation or positive connotation? It has a negative connotation. Negative connotation, why would you want to link moksha or the death of Buddha or death of yourself in a negative sense? If it says that it is the complete annihilation of desire of oneself vis-a-vis Nibbana, then it makes sense. This question is problematic, I told you, because UPSC has made it in a problematic way. In a way, none of the options are actually correct, but there is no other way to go with other than A. So this is a philosophy type question. You have to apply your knowledge. UPSC is moving away from this type of questions, but it happens. This will happen in polity, this will happen in geography, it will happen in history multiple times. You would have seen multiple times that sometimes the statement does not fit properly, but that is the correct statement. So don't overthink in that moment, because then you are basically falling into the trap of the examiner. Can I move to the next question? If you understand the trap here, these two questions straightforward were philosophy questions or the application of your knowledge in that regard. English vocabulary should be strong. If you understand that statements, you will automatically come to A. Okay. Which of the following kingdoms are associated with the life of Buddha? Avanti, Gandhara, Kosala, Magad. Now this will test your memory with regards to maps. And I have a very strong feeling I'll get a mixed answer here. That's a separate issue altogether. If you can remember the north, south, east, west as I marked in that map of Mahajanpadas, you can easily answer this question. Yes, Megha, in a way. Hmm. 37, 32. Perfect. 17, 14, you are forgetting something. Okay. Northernmost two Mahajanpadas. Can you anybody tell me the name of them? Very good. Gandhara and Kamboj. So I told you that Buddha operated in the core area of the Mahajanpadas. So any option with Gandhara would automatically be out of this question. So you have 1, 2. Now you're left with two very similar type of questions. You have 3, 4 in both, which is Kosala and Magad. That is what I told you. In the heart of Mahajanpadas, you have these options. Now you need to decide between if one is correct or not. Now, UPSC played this question twice. UPSC played this question twice. First year, they gave the wrong answer. And next year, they gave the same question to give the right answer. First year, when they gave this question, they gave answer as D. And thereafter, they repeated this question and gave the answer as C. And in the first go itself, the option of D was incorrect. If you remember, Avanti and Ashmaka were towards the western and southernmost. They are outside the pale of core Mahajanpadas. UPSC did this. This question, if you will ever see your previous questions, was repeated twice. One time they gave the answer as D, the other time they gave it answer as C, and then they issued a corrigendum in the previous year that the answer was C. And that year there was a lot of controversy over this question, because maybe Avanti will have later Buddhist presence. But when Buddha is alive, life of Buddha never went out towards the extremes. He was always in between this area. So the answer here is C. And this again can be answered by understanding the location. Gandhara gives you two options. And you know Kosala and Magad. Magad had to be there. So 4 had to be there. There are only 4 options with that, or 3 options with that. This is the catch here. I told you that by just looking at that map, you can answer most of the questions, which is Northern, Southern, Eastern, and Western. So Angavanga, and you have the Gandhara Kamboj, and Ashmaka and Avanti are extremes. The UPSC does not compensate for anything. That was our problem. That was not UPSC's problem. UPSC doesn't do that. Now to at least it started to drop questions. Last year, I think 1 question was dropped. Previously, 2022, 3 questions were dropped. Before that, UPSC never used to drop questions also. So these type of questions are, see, I'll tell you why there's a problem in these type of questions. The examiner's perspective is the problem. The examiner's perspective is the problem. By what perspective is the examiner making these type of questions? That is the problem. And for example, just by not writing life, then 1, 3, and 4 becomes correct. Now we presume that this life means when Buddha was alive. And now if he's not alive, then 1, 3, and 4 is correct. If he's alive, then only 3 and 4 is correct. So the problem is that these questions are based on the interpretation of these words. But these now have become rarer and rarer, because UPSC has understood their mistake. That by giving subjective questions, you are basically trying to trouble the student. So again, this is a type of question which can trouble you a little bit. But again, what can defy this type of problems? Logic. Understand the logic, go by the logic. Don't complicate your understanding. Sometimes logic can prevail in that regard. Can I move to the next question? If you understand, again, the 2 questions which I knew will trouble you. Everybody falls into the same trap, and it has happened again. Now, this is a very interesting question. It's a googly. With reference to difference between the culture of Rigvedic Aryans and Indus Valley people, which of the following statements are correct? Rigvedic Aryans used the coat of mail and coat of mail, which is chain, and helmet in warfare, whereas the people of Indus Valley civilization did not leave any evidence of using them. Rigvedic Aryans knew gold, silver, copper, whereas Indus Valley people knew only copper and iron. Rigvedic Aryans had domesticated the horse, whereas there is no evidence of Indus Valley civilization having been aware of this animal. Okay, read it properly, and it is not a very difficult question, only big statements. That's it. This is more representative of the pattern. These type of questions have started to come, which is application of knowledge. Ilma, that is also incorrect. 54% of you totally correct. What I'm more astonished about is 21, 19 and 6%. Rigvedic Aryan, gold, silver, copper. Indus Valley civilization knew iron. Did you iron? Now comes two statements. They had evidence of warfare. They have no evidence of warfare. This is totally correct. That is already implied in this question. Now the point is 3. Rigvedic Aryans domesticated horse. No evidence of horse. No evidence at all. Surkotada. A. So this question is very easy, straightforward. If you will go by certain answers which are given online, then you will answer C. Because somehow again, randomly people are saying that there is no evidence of horse in Indus Valley civilization. There is evidence of horse written in the PPT. It is now proved. Surkotada gives you that. So the point which you need to understand here is these are questions are the factual questions. Any question I've done till this point hasn't been factual. A lot of you ask me these questions that what is the type of question which ancient India gives you. These are not factual questions. These are conceptual questions. And for conceptual questions, you need to understand the period, understand the concepts. And that is what we are trying to do here. And this is the misnomer which everybody has about ancient or medieval or art and culture. That only these type of questions come. No. Animal is in question, not horse. So is it a googly? What do you mean by that? Domesticated the horse, whereas there's no evidence of this animal. That is the way of writing. That is how you write. There's no googly here. There's a very straightforward question. No, Anjali, silver, gold, and copper, all three were found in Indus Valley civilization. And it's actually reversed. Rigvedic Aryans mostly, all Rigvedic Aryans knew about gold, silver, copper, iron. And Indus Valley people knew about gold, silver, and copper. That's it. Was iron there used in early Vedic phase? Again, Virendra, you are overthinking. I told you they knew about iron, did not use it. Here the word knew is used. Knew. Read the question closely. Sir, horse is not written in this question. Rigvedic Aryans had domesticated the horse, whereas there is no evidence of Indus Valley people having been aware of this animal. Now you are not reading it correctly. This is how this animal refers to horse. Now don't do this. This is basic English. So even if that was the case, the statement is incorrect as it is. Doesn't really matter also. This animal is written to refer horse. Now, this is now problematic. Obviously, if they talk, which animal are they then referring to? Third statement, then what are they referring to if this not which animal then? If you will not see, this is the problem. This is called overthinking beyond exception. You don't even need to go into decoding this so much. As soon as you see no evidence, the statement automatically becomes incorrect. The question paper is made in standard English. That much expectation UPSC has that you understand that English at least. And if there's an issue, then please do go through the newspaper and have to increase your vocabulary that way. It's not a difficult question, it's a very easy question. Which one of the following is not a Harappan site? This question you can only answer after I teach you Mauryas, but sure, why not check it? I think one more question is there. 36, 39, 21, 4%. Okay. See, Kotadisi and Chanudaro are there. These are the easiest ones. The problem is this. Now, this question was basically a current affairs question. Desalpur is a Harappan site. In that year, Shogara was in the news. And this is basically a Mauryan site in which there's an inscription where they found it. And therefore, the answer is C. But I don't expect you to answer this question. I would rather want you to answer this question. Desalpur is in, again, the Gujarat sector. Consider the following statements. Deification of Buddha. This is a spelling error from UPSC. It's called treading, not trading. Treading. Treading means to walk. Treading the path of Bodhisattvas. Image worship and rituals. Which of the following are the features of Mahayanic Buddhism? I know what is going to happen. That one word is going to now make the question difficult for most of you. Deification. You answer it right now, then we'll talk about it. Okay. Deity, deification. Mahayanic Buddhism. Was Buddha God? Yes. Do you go with Bodhisattvas? Yes. Do you with all worship? Yes. Now, this question is again the easiest possible. The problem is deification is a word which you don't know. Deity, God, deification. So, deification of God, Buddha means Buddha is called God. So, if one was correct, three had to be correct. And as it is Bodhisattvas, wherever you see, it is Mahayanic Buddhism only. Now, you tell me what is the conclusion of doing all of this. Because I want to now start this module, which is module number 4. What is the conclusion which we've come to? UPSC is uncertain is not a conclusion. That is a fact. The conclusion is that firstly, conceptual questions are coming. Second, you need to have a better vocabulary. If you have a vocabulary plus logic and you have basic understanding of everything, you can answer any question. PPTs have the answer to all questions. So what you really need to do is trust the concept. You want to see the leaderboard? 1 second. Well, fastest finger first. 1 second. Janvi and Rupali have got, I think, all the questions correct. Thereafter, Kishore, Kartikeya, Shivaji, Meera, Aditya, Shri, Shreyank, Siddharth, Besmita, Prince, Chituri, Ankur, Sarita, Madhumita, Devo, Preeti, Subhash, and Shrikant with Virendra as the last one. It only shows you the first 14, 15. So the point is, the point is, doesn't really matter who's getting what in this. These are previous year questions. They will never get repeated. My basic request to you is, do not complicate it. It's already very straightforward. Logic, basic understanding, and PPT plus trusting the process, and you will actually get any answer needed. That is the point you need to understand. Yes, that is why Aditya questions are made in a difficult way. To make history questions difficult, you can only play with vocabulary because the fact cannot change. And that is the point you need to understand here. Okay. So, previous questions, if you drop, if a question has no. See, if you do not have a good vocabulary, you have to improve your vocabulary. That cannot be a reason to not answer questions. If you're struggling here, polity, geography, economics, everywhere the questions are played with words. That is the least we expect and UPSC expects from you. And if you are still struggling, then you have to go through and read books, read newspaper. Reading Lakshmikant, reading UPSC oriented books is not going to improve your vocabulary. Because I have asked multiple students, do you read books? They say yes. Kya padhte ho? Lakshmikant. Lakshmikant is not going to improve your vocabulary. The point is, you have to go through in a conscious way. You have to go through certain books. Either you read fiction, non-fiction, doesn't matter, or at least read the newspaper. Because these words will come in front of you when you read the newspaper, and then you can just Google it. In the era of Google, in the era of multiple apps, in the era of information in front of you, if you still are having this excuse that I cannot understand the question because of vocabulary, then that is an excuse, literal excuse in that regard. That expectation we all have from each one of you, which is that this much level of vocabulary you should have. I know it is very easy to say, but it can be done, and it has been done previously also. Can I now start module number 4? And we, therefore, Ajiviks are already done yesterday. Now we have to start again back to political history. The conclusion is, again, a lot of facts will come. You have to become a little bit immune to facts, because UPSC is not asking facts, rather it is asking concepts. So you need to understand the concept first, then the facts. Facts can be learned over a period of time. Concepts need to understand. You need to understand them. They need to be internalized. Okay. How to improve vocabulary? Listen to me, Anshu. I've told you, read the newspaper, read certain books. It will help you. Okay. Recent years also, it is all factual. It is all conceptual. See, out of the 10 to 15 questions which will come from history, ancient, medieval, art and culture, 2 to 3 will always be factual. But what students do is that they chase these questions and not the other 8 to 9 questions. Understand this point. 25% of the paper is always difficult for every subject. 100 questions will come. We don't expect you to answer 75 or 80 more, not more than that. I'm not asking you to answer 100 out of 100. No, because if there is negative marking, you need to know where to not attempt. If you can identify these 2-3 questions, not attempt them, and rather go with the 8 to 9 questions which are totally simple, straightforward, conceptual, and can be managed, then you are doing your job. If you are getting 75% of the questions correct, that is fine. But because what happens is, you all open Kiran publication and you're able to solve 100 out of that 100%, 70 to 80% questions. But then your mind is, how can I answer this question? And over that how, you will be ready to learn 150 facts, but you will not strengthen on the fact what questions have asked been, or what areas are getting repeated in that. So understand this point very clearly, that UPSC does not expect you to go throughout the paper, and prelims marks is as it is not added to your merit. Just have to qualify. In polity also it will happen, in economics it also, or geography, everywhere. Same. That's a very standard Kiran publication is used for doing the previous questions. Standard thing. Okay. Now, this week ancient will be done. We'll start medieval also. Don't worry about that. 14 classes I have to finish medieval and ancient together. That will be done. Don't worry about that. Last module of medieval as it is art and culture only, Bhakti and Sufi. So we start module number 4. We are now going back to political history, and this will go on till the last module of ancient. This was the only cultural history religious module. Rather than doing it in what we call as art and culture, I do it here because it makes more sense to know the tussle between Buddhism, Jainism, and Hinduistic practices, or what we call as Vedic Brahmanism. Now, in order to go through this chapter, you have one chapter in the NCRT and 3 chapters in R.S. Sharma. If you want to read them, sure. If not, the gist of it and the main points are there in the PPT already. Now, in order to understand the Mauryan dynasty, we have to go back where we left our political history. If you remember, the last thing which we discussed was Magad, and Magad, we were trying to understand how the different dynasties, Haranka, Shishunga, and Nanda, and the last thing I discussed with you was the Nanda dynasty and a person called Dhanananda. If you remember these things, this was done as part of your second class, Dhanananda. Last week we discussed this. I asked you to remember that Dhanananda is the last ruler of the Magad dynasty. It has dominated all other Mahajanpadas. Under Bindusara and Ajatshatru, they have actually expanded quite a lot, and they have now become, in a way, a very important power in the northern sector. So Dhanananda is the ruler of Magad, and now we need to talk about how things will transition and change in the Indian subcontinent. And to understand that, we now need to imagine. And I need your imagination because I'll tell you a story which is going to be first in a way of maps, and then I'll give you the gist of it also. And it is also in the PPT. So please pay attention. See, this is the Indus River. Pay attention now. Indus River, on this side you have Magad, and the ruler you have is Dhanananda. Now, the northwestern sector of India always has been the place from which there is flux and people can move in and around. But beyond the Indus, just next to the Indus, there was a very big empire. There was a very big empire which used to stretch from India, from Central Asia till the areas such as Greece. And there's a area called Macedonia. Macedonia is in Greece. And this is a very big empire. This empire is called the Achaemenid Empire. Achaemenid Empire. They rule from Persia. It's a Persian sector, Iran-Iraq sector they use. And they have a border with the Indus River and as far as Greece. Just to give you a reference, the yellow part which you see is basically the Achaemenian Empire. It used to be from present-day Macedonia till the Indus River, and the whole of Central Asia, or what we call as West Asia, is under it. There's such a big empire. It's called the Achaemenid Empire. It's called the Achaemenid Empire. Now, this is how things are in the beginning of this period of 350 BCE. So 350 BCE, between 400 and 350, previously the Achaemenid Empire was expanding, and it has reached its biggest point. Now, in Macedonia, what happens is the Achaemenids fight with the father of a person called Alexander, who's Philip, and basically Greece goes under the domination of Achaemenid. Thereafter, over a period of time, obviously it happens to every empire, Achaemenid Empire starts to become a little bit weak. And now Alexander, who has now succeeded his father Philip, will rise in Macedonia. Alexander will rise in Macedonia, and the Indus River still is the de facto border between the Achaemenid Empire and Magad. And you have here Magad as the major power. Now, what Alexander starts to do is he starts to expand on the expense of the Achaemenid Empire. He starts to expand and conquer the Achaemenid Empire. And in the process of doing that, he reaches the Indus. This is what this map indicates also. This is the route which he took between 327 BCE and 323 BCE. These 4 years he was fighting. He started in modern day Macedonia, and throughout his whole career, he went through the different sectors of the Achaemenid Empire. And in the, for example, the battle of Issus, very important battle it is considered, or the battle of Gaugamela, two very important battles considered. These two battles will become the turning point for Alexander, and Alexander is not conquering his own empire. He's conquering in revenge of his father's empire going into the Achaemenid Empire. Philip's empire had been conquered by the Achaemenidians, and now he is expanding when he succeeds his father at Macedonia. Macedonia goes under the control of the Achaemenid Empire, and now the Macedonians are expanding. So basically, this is called the Macedonian invasion because they come from Macedonia in Greece. So from Eastern Europe, they will start to expand. He will start to expand. And we don't care how he won these battles. We are more care about, when he reaches the Indus. So now, if this part is clear that there's an empire called the Achaemenid Empire, and there's also a person called Alexander who will start to expand in the expense of the Achaemenid Empire, he's reached the Indus. That is what matters to me. Can I discuss what happens further? This is the second part of the story. We have to discuss the third part, which is the most significant. Which is when Alexander reaches the Indus. Okay, perfect. Now, this is the Indus River. You have the last, it is believed that the last major river you have to cross to enter into India properly is the Beas River. You have the Beas River. You have Satluj and all here. Now, here you have Magad, which is Dhanananda. On the other hand, Alexander has reached here. Alexander has reached till the Indus, and now he wants to enter into India. Now, in order to enter into India, he had three major rulers to defeat or three major areas to conquer before he crosses the Beas. One would be Takshila. Thereafter, there used to be another ruler called Ambhi. And the last, his name was Porus. So Ambhi is the ruler. We don't know his name of empire. Porus is the ruler. And Takshila is the area. Now, when Alexander wants to come into India, He's able to take Takshila very easily. He's able to take Takshila very easily. The Takshila ruler, we don't know his name, is very happy to become part of Alexander's empire. In the same way, Ambhi also did not give a lot of resistance. He did not give a lot of resistance. And he was also very happy to become part of Alexander's empire. But now comes the question of Porus. Now comes the question of Porus. Porus is the name of the ruler. We don't know where his empire is. It is the name of the ruler. We don't know where his empire is. We don't have any idea what the boundaries of his empire was. We just know that he was based on the Satlaj. And Porus now starts to give Satlaj and Jhelum, in between Satlaj and Jhelum. But Satlaj and Jhelum are the two most important sectors which Porus basically controls. Again, we have no idea about the exact location. We don't know. Now, Porus is the one who gives very staunch resistance to Alexander. He is a very small ruler, but Alexander, it will take 3 months to fight with Porus, and finally, in what is called the Battle of Hedipetus. Hedipetus is basically the name which the Greeks give to the river Satlaj and Jhelum sector. And in that, Porus will lose. However, Alexander was so impressed by the bravery and the skills of Porus that he will give Porus his kingdom back, and now say that you should become part of my empire as a governor. So basically, Porus was reinstated his kingdom in respect from Alexander, that his army had defeated a lot of bigger armies and the Achaemenid Empire throughout that area. However, yes, Aditya. However, Porus had given a much bigger resistance with a much smaller army. Now, Alexander is standing on the left bank of the Beas River. And if Alexander crosses the Beas River, he has to fight Dhanananda. And it is believed at this point of time, Dhanananda had an army 10 times or 11 times bigger than Porus, and Alexander knew about this. But the problem which Alexander faces is that between 327 to 323 BC, his army had been fighting for close to 5 years straight. And when Alexander is standing here, he chooses that he wants to cross the Beas River and he wants to make India as part of his empire. However, as soon as he chooses that, his army rebels and says, we don't want to there's a mutiny. We don't want to cross the Beas River because we don't now want it for a small ruler. It took 3 months. We don't want to fight for another 3 years with Dhanananda, because Dhanananda could be a very good adversary also and could be a very weak adversary also. They said that if we cross the Beas River, we will be having a very long fight. We want to go back. You have already conquered a very big empire. And very fatefully for the Indian subcontinent. In a way, fortunately also, Alexander goes back. After his army refuses to fight against Dhanananda. This part of the story is very significant because this meant that the Macedonian invasion never crossed the Beas River, and the Indian subcontinent and its culture was protected because of the fatigue of the soldiers of Alexander. Porus's resistance was important because that delayed his entry into India and showed that the Indian rulers with a much smaller army could defeat and even stall Alexander. Now, I'll repeat this story out of the PPT and then I'll give you a flowchart to complete the whole story because I need to talk about Seleucus Nicator 1. The story is very straightforward and simple. It's Alexander III was the son of Philip, a ruler of Macedonia. He succeeded his father to the throne in Macedonia in 336 BCE. And the Greeks and the Persians, which is Persians mean nothing but Achaemenid Empire, fought for supremacy since that point. The rivalry between Alexander's time, Alexander defeated Darius in 334, which is a major Achaemenid ruler, at the Battle of Issus. And then he conquered Syria, Gaza Strip, Egypt, Babylon, Susa, and mostly the most important Persepolis, that whole area which is important. Thereafter, now he moves towards the northwestern sector of India. So in 327, he has already established himself in Greece and Persia. His army has been fighting quite a lot. Don't have to remember these battles. No, don't even need to remember the dates. Just remember the sequence, which I will give you in the flowchart. In northwestern sector, there was no political unity, and there were multiple rulers there. Among them were two very important. One of the rulers was Takshila, which was Ambhi, and thereafter you have Porus or Puru, who was holding the territories between Jhelum and Chenab. And in a way, from Jhelum to Chenab to Satluj, it is believed that these three areas are what Porus really actually managed. So Jhelum, Chenab, and Satluj, three areas it is managed. Satluj was, I think, his southern border, and you have Jhelum, Chenab as the northern and the eastern border. So in that regard, he is holding a very big territory. Now he will give very strong resistance. Ambhi, as it is, will give up Takshila very, very quickly. And thereafter, he will, and the other smaller kingdoms will be captured very soon and very quickly. Thereafter, Porus will give strong resistance. That will slow down, Alexander. Alexander will then basically ask Ambhi and the other rulers of the sector to fight against Porus, and that will create a lot of pressure on Porus, and Porus will be defeated, but Alexander will reward him his bravery his area back. Now, with friendly relationship with Porus also, he will now look towards coming into India. But before he could do that, his soldiers will refuse to enter or cross the Bias River itself, and they will never cross the Bias, and therefore they will go back from this point forward. After what happens, I have to discuss with you. So there have been three basic things which have happened. Achaemenian Empire is there. Alexander is expanding. He reaches till this point. He has the Takshila sector with Ambhi as the ruler, but Ambhi used to have his own area beyond Takshila also. And in this area does not give any resistance. Porus does with Satluj, Beas, and Jhelum and Chenab. This whole sector under Porus. Battle of Oedipus is basically the battle near Satluj and Jhelum. They used to call Jhelum and Satluj area as Oedipus. Don't have to remember the names also. Just remember the sequence which I'm going to give you. And thereafter, his army refuses to go forward from Bias. Can we accept this much? Because this is what really matters. This is what really matters. The first part of the story is this. The first European to invade Indian subcontinent is not Alexander. Alexander never crossed Indian subcontinent, the Bias. He never entered the Indian subcontinent. He reached till the Indus for sure, but he never crossed this point. Please understand this point. He never went beyond this point. And that is basically the Indian subcontinent. He is still in the northwestern sector only. He never crosses. We are using this word, Oedipus. Oedipus. This is basically the battle in which we are talking about. So, this is the area which we are operating in. Now, I need to tell you a more important story, which is what happens after this. I'll give you a sequence in the PPT. Don't have to worry about that. Now, two things will happen together. Two things will happen together vis-a-vis in this whole sector. You have Dhanananda here. Yes, I know that Indus is part of the Indian subcontinent, but we are talking beyond the Indus. Indian subcontinent is this part, not this part. You have Dhanananda. And Alexander had a very big empire here. This is Alexander's empire. Now, when Alexander was going back, he gave this sector to one of his generals. He appointed a governor, and his name was Seleucus Nicator I. He is basically the governor appointed by Alexander himself. So Seleucus Nicator I controls the Indus part of this empire, and Alexander is going back. But unfortunately, it is believed that it was only in the fate of Alexander to fight and not enjoy his empire. And whilst on his way back, he basically starts to develop certain symptoms of very chronic food poisoning. And Alexander basically dies before even reaching Macedonia. And this will basically become a major problem for Alexander or Alexander's successors, because the empire was too big to be managed by his weak successors. So what is going to happen is that Seleucus Nicator I will then, what he will do, he will carve out his own empire. And what he will do basically is that rather than reporting to Macedonia, he will establish himself in the northwestern sector and keep on expanding further in what is called the Seleucid Empire, named after his name itself, Seleucus Nicator I. Seleucus Nicator I. Now you have the Seleucid Empire on one side, and in India something very significant is going to happen, wherein Dhanananda had become a problematic ruler for most of the people, and a person called Kautilya or Chanakya is going to help Chandragupta Maurya he kills Dhanananda and he captures power. So you see, on both sides there's a change of guard. Here Alexander is gone, and here you will have now the Mauryan Empire which will get established. So it is believed that Chandragupta Maurya was one of the officers within the Dhanananda army, and Kautilya believed that they had much bigger potential than Dhanananda to actually become much bigger as an empire in India. So with the help of Kautilya, Chanakya, who wrote the Arthashastra, we believe that Chandragupta Maurya will fight Dhanananda and win and capture the power. But now you have a problem. What is that problem? Now you have a problem. What is that problem? The problem is that on both sides of the Indus, you have two very powerful kings. One, you have the Seleucid Empire. The other, you have Chandragupta Maurya. Now what they do is that they start to fight for this sector. For this sector, they will start to fight, which is Chandragupta Maurya wanted the Indus and its tributaries, while Seleucus Nicator I also wanted the Indus and this sector. And they will basically start to fight. But after fighting for 2 to 3 months, both Seleucus Nicator I and Chandragupta Maurya will realize one thing, that there's no point fighting for this area, because both had the potential to have much bigger empires, one towards the European sector, the other towards India. And in a dramatic turn of events, Seleucus Nicator I is going to marry his daughter Helena to Chandragupta Maurya, and he will basically give this area to the Mauryans. And now both will concentrate on their own internal politics, and the other side, which is Seleucus Nicator I, will concentrate on this side area. Chandragupta Maurya will look towards this area. And the most important point here is that now the northwestern sector has become secured because there is a friendly relationship, and that is why when we talk about the Mauryans, there are multiple Greek sources, because Seleucus Nicator or Seleucus Nicator is a Greek, and the Greeks will now start to come to India and write about India. And you know, one of the most first Greek scholar to come to India, who is that? The first Greek scholar to come to India. Anyone? Megasthenes. Megasthenes will come to India and now write the history of the Mauryan Empire, which we will discuss. But a very interesting part of the story is that these two empires will stand the test of time, and in India, the Mauryans represent the strongest and the most centralized empire ever to be, the last and the only, first, last and only centralized empire in the history of Indian subcontinent. Alexander already had died. That is why Seleucus Nicator I was capturing the power. So just to complete the story out of the PPT, and then I'll give you the flow chart. After Alexander invaded the northwestern part, his general Seleucus Nicator I established the Seleucid Empire. And the Seleucid Empire, Seleucus Nicator went into a conflict with Chandragupta Maurya over the Hindu Kush and this whole sector. This whole sector is the question over which they are fighting. However, the Seleucid Empire, which existed between 312 to 63 BCE, he will basically marry off his daughter to Chandragupta Maurya and end the conflict, and this will become the part of the Mauryan Empire itself. And Seleucid will start to go towards Europe and start to expand towards the core of Alexander's area, and Mauryans will start to go towards the heart of the Indian subcontinent, and that I will explain to you through a map separately. So can I give you this sequence? Can I give you this sequence in a flow chart which will help you answer any question which can come from this area? Yes? Okay. Okay. Now this is basically Alexander's invasion and establishment of Helena is the daughter of Seleucus Nicator I, married to Chandragupta Maurya. Establishment of Seleucid and Mauryan Empire. What was the currency? It is still the punch-marked coins. Okay, now Achaemenid Empire exists across Central Asia, West Asia till Indus and conquers Macedonia under Philip. Thereafter, Alexander, son of Philip, rises against Achaemenid Empire and starts to expand and reaches the Indus River. Ambhi, ruler of Takshila sector, gives no resistance. Porus, ruler between Achaemenid Empire was not of Alexander, obviously not. This is Darius I. He's a Persian ruler. Porus ruled between Jhelum, Chenab and Satluj. And he gave very heavy resistance to Alexander. Why Alexander called Alexander the Great? I am not calling him the Great. He's called great because he conquered a lot of areas. My job is not to say who is great or not great. I will not call anyone great. Neither Ashoka, neither Akbar, neither Alexander. Not my job. Now, Alexander, he's called great by the Europeans. Alexander reaches the Bias River after defeating Porus. Decided to cross the river and face Dhanananda, but his army refuses to fight after years of battle. Anybody has any issue in this part of the story? Can a history optional student say Alexander? You call him great, Alexander the troller, whatever you want to call him. That is a epithet which you want to call him. Why not? I have no issues. History optional, non-history optional, philosophy optional, your call. That is not his name. That is a way of calling him. So that's not anybody's prerogative to call him that or not. Does anybody have an issue in this part of the story? Dhanananda did not play a diplomatic role. Dhanananda just had a big army. That's it. Okay. Alexander goes back and appoints Seleucus Nicator I as governor. At the same time, Alexander dies. It's believed that he died in Egypt. Alexander died. Seleucus Nicator I captured power and established Seleucid Empire, and Dhanananda was killed by Chandragupta Maurya. Thereafter, Chandragupta Maurya fights with Seleucus Nicator I for northwestern India. They agree to go into matrimonial alliance. Daughter of Seleucus Nicator I, Helena, married to Chandragupta. India's northwestern border secure and pro-Mauryan Greek movements. Are we clear with regards to this whole story? Then I give you a break. Are Achaemenid Empire, Macedonia different? Yes, Macedonia is a Greek area, Greek empire, captured by the Achaemenians or the Persians as they call it. Are we clear with regards to this whole story? If yes, we take a break. This is just to give you any question with regards to chronological order. And more than that, most important aspect, which is that this is why, this is all to tell you one thing, scholars. This is just to tell you one thing. Why are there Greek sources about the Mauryans? This question is going to be answered by this conversation. That how is there, or how, what is the reason that Greek sources existed at that point of time? Get my point? Okay, northwestern India means the Rajasthan, Afghanistan, Pakistan sector. Okay, so we come back at 7:40. Let's come at 7:45, because then I have to have a very heavy discussion with you. So 5 minutes extra, but the basic point is we come back at 7:45 and we move forward. Previous slide, I leave it here. Okay, welcome back. What we have to now discuss is the Mauryan Empire. And why is that? We know nothing like that, Madhur. Why is that the Mauryan Empire is so important? There are three things you need to know about it already. First, it's centralized administration. Thereafter, something called Dhamma, Ashokan Dhamma. And third is its size and scale. But the question would be that how do we know about it? What are the sources about the Mauryan Empire? And between 324 to 184 BCE, which is basically the period between, you'll find 321 also, 324 also. We take the longer one, 324 between 184 BCE. This empire had three very important rulers. It will have multiple rulers, but you have what we call as Chandragupta Maurya, Bindusara, and Ashoka. Ashoka is the one which we have to discuss because he is a very interesting personality that way when it comes to historical figures. Now, the first things first, what are the sources? How do we know about the Mauryan dynasty and the Mauryan Empire? So we have two sets of sources. One are called foreign sources, which are foreign language sources, or what we call as indigenous sources, written in India itself. And one thing you will realize that the texts are actually older and written later than the Mauryan Empire, but are talking about the Mauryans in close to 400 to 500 years later. You need to. This is a very important area out of which questions come. The point is, imagine that after 500 years, someone is referring to you. That would be an indication of what? That a source which is written in 5th century CE, which is close to 700 years later, it is talking about the Mauryans. What does it indicate towards? Yes, it indicates towards greatness, the power, and the importance of the Mauryas in that regard. So, the first most important source through which most of the Mauryan administrative history is linked is called Arthashastra. Arthashastra, everybody knows, is linked to a person called Kautilya, or the what we call as Chanakya also in multiple contexts. You have different names given to this personality, but Kautilya is the most common, and he gives you the most important story or the most important normative text about Mauryan administration. He has a very extensive understanding of diplomacy, of internal and external administration. And yes, Vishnu Gupta is again a name which is given to him. Vishnu Gupta, Chanakya, Kautilya, all are the same vis-a-vis that. But the point is, Arthashastra, very important source. But something like this cannot be asked that who wrote the Arthashastra, where it's a very easy question. However, we then have another set of things, which is Mudrakshara Vishakadatta. This came in the examination this year. And it's you have to remember it like this: Mud Visa. Vishakadatta is the author of a book called Mudrakshara, and this text talks about the Nandas and how with the help of Chanakya, Chandragupta Maurya captured power. So this text, though written after 700 years, had a reference to the to the Mauryas. Thereafter, you have Harshcharita by Vana. This is again a very old text written under the Harshvardhan dynasty, but again refers to the Mauryas and specifically how the Mauryan Empire declined. So again, you need to know Bana, Harsha, Charita. So Harban. Thereafter, the most important text, which is the only text which talks about the history of Kashmir and Jammu and Kashmir, which is Raj Tarangini by Kalhan. This is a very important text. And Kalhan, in a way, is also considered the father of Indian history because he wrote the first proper account of history in a way it should be written. And he talks about how Ashoka built Srinagar and how the Mauryan presence was there in the Kashmir sector also. So you have Rajkal, and then the Puranas, the Jatakas. Jatakas are nothing but the stories of Buddhism. And Prasishta Pravan by Hemchandra. He's a Jain poet who talks about how Chandragupta Maurya went through Saleh Khan. Now here it will be per Hema. Per Hema. Remember these acronyms, and that should be enough to answer the questions, because you just have to associate. The word is already written there. You just need to know. So what is the actual time period? I told you actual time period is 324 to 184 BCE. That is the time period of the Mauryas. We don't consider Alexander as part of Mauryas. So very simply, how 100 years later people know and write books, because that is the point. We today are writing books about the Indus Valley civilization 5,000 years later. Why? Because of the importance of that dynasty or importance of that civilization. So the people, the post-Mauryan dynasties and even Gupta dynasties, they talk about Mauryas through different oral histories, which later got written down. So the sources are extremely interesting, but what is even more interesting is the foreign sources. Because here you can see that there are multiple Greek texts, Sri Lankan texts, and even Tibetan texts, because Ashoka was the one who spread. And this is why Ashoka is the reason why the Mauryans are known so much, because of his spreading of Buddhism via the concept of Dhamma. Now we know that Megasthenes Indica, though the Indica itself, the book does not exist, but Megasthenes Indica is quoted in other books which were written later. The fact is that Megasthenes Indica was written in Greek and it talks about Mauryan administration. It has a little bit of peculiarities which I'll discuss with you. Vis-a-vis, he does not talk about slavery. He says there's no slavery. He has a different way of dividing society also. But that's something which we'll discuss separately. Then you have 4 texts which are written by 4 very important people. Strato or Strabo, Justin, Arrian, and Pliny. S. Jap, it is there. Strabo, Justin, Arrian, and Pliny. They wrote 4 very important accounts of different aspects of the Mauryas. For example, Strabo tells us the marriage between Helena and Chandragupta Maurya. Justin tells us how Sandrakotas, I'll tell you, Sandrakotas and Androkotas are 2 names of Chandragupta Maurya in Greek. In Greek, they gave Chandragupta Maurya and different Greek names. Even Bindusara has a different name in Greek. Greek, they have different names itself. But he talks about how Seleucus Nicator I captured power. Then Arrian talks about the power of the Nandas and how Alexander was not in favor to cross the Beas in that regard. And Pliny again talks about very inflated numbers, that is the power of the Mauryas and their army in that regard. Then we also have Chinese accounts. Sandrakotas, see, I'll come to that. There are 3 terms. Sandrakotas, Androkotas, Amitrochates. These 3 are Greek names of, 2 are the names of Chandragupta Maurya, 1 is the name of Bindusara. I'll talk to you about that. Obviously, they will not call him Chandragupta Maurya. They gave him a different name itself. So there are 3 names which you need to know. I will refer to them when I'll talk about the political history of these 2 personalities. Now, Sandrakotas means Chandragupta Maurya. So now we have to talk about the Chinese accounts. Chinese accounts in India, there have been 3 very important Chinese travelers, and you need to remember it like this. FHI. First is Fahian. Second is Huansang, or whatever you want to call it, Huansang. And the third is called Itzing. This is their chronological order also. Again, you can answer any question based on this understanding. Huansang, Itzing, and Fahian are the 3 Chinese travelers, Buddhist travelers who came. Fahian refers to the Mauryans, and even Huansang refers to how Ashoka was under the influence of Upagupta before he turned towards Buddhism. And then we have a whole set of Buddhist sources coming from the Sri Lankan sector, wherein they are also talking about, Ceylon would mean Sri Lanka, multiple references to Mauryas and how Ashoka sent his daughter and son to Sri Lanka to propagate Buddhism, which is Mahendra and Sanghamitra. Mahavamsa talks about it. The catch here is all have Vamsas. Mahavamsa, Deepa Vamsa, Kula Vamsa. So you only remember this. Maha, Deepa, Kula, and you can leave this one. Don't have to worry about this. Written in Pali language, and again, Buddhist chronicles talk about it. We also have Divyadana, which is a Tibetan source which talks about the Mauryas. Now, the question which will be in your mind is very straightforward. What should I do with all this information? And what you need to do with this information is Upagupta is considered a small Buddhist boy who was in contact with Ashoka, who later convinced Ashoka to go towards Buddhism. Now, with regards to these two slides, you have to remember the facts. Because in the examination, one question on literature is coming, and this area is important that way. And just by knowing the name and the author, and I'll show you the 2023 paper soon, you will realize that just knowing the name and the author, it is easy. Maximum 10, 15. This area, Mauryas are centralized, so there are a lot of terms here. After this point, there's no terms. But the way you do it is just the ones which I've marked is important. You have to make sure that you make a list of this and do it systematically. One or two each day is going to not kill you, and it will be easy to understand also. So you can't run away from this. Foreign sources, when it comes to Mauryas and Guptas, sources is important, and Mauryan administration has multiple terminologies which you need to know. So if you are clear about the greatness, and how do we know about the Mauryas, I will go into the political history. There's no running away from this. There's no solution for this. There's no magic potion which will make it go away. You have to do this in the way we are discussing here. Yes, sir. Okay, perfect. Okay. Now let's talk about the rulers. You have Chandragupta Maurya as the one who started it. Then you have Bindusara. Remember, Bimbisara is Magad. Bindu is Maurya. Then you have Ashoka, the most celebrated of all Mauryan rulers. Thereafter, I don't expect you to remember Dashrath or Sampriti or these. I only want you to remember the last one, which is Brihadrath. Brihadrath. Did question come from this topic previously? Yes. And as it is, stop asking me this question, because it doesn't matter. Because if the previous question has asked a topic from a certain area, that area for sure is not going to come now. So this, if the question has come or not come, is immaterial, because anything can be asked. So can we concentrate on the task in hand? 4 names I want you to remember: Chandragupta Maurya, Bindusara, Ashoka, and Brihadrath. 4 names you need to know. I will use these names in different contexts. You should be able to, and you need to be cognizant of them in with regards to that. Yes? Okay. Nanda is Nanda dynasty. He was defeated by Chandragupta and Mauryan Empire. Yes. Bimbisara is Magad. Bindusara is Maurya. Bimbi, Bindu, Bimbi, Bindu. I don't care about this. I really don't care about this. I have no inclination to discuss this. So very simply, Chandragupta, Bindusara, Ashoka, Brihadrath. Mauryans, 4. Can I move forward? Basic political history. In other sources, they have other names. How do we know they are mentioning Mauryas? Where have you seen other names? Chandragupta Maurya will remain Chandragupta Maurya only. Bindusara will also remain Bindusara. Ashoka will remain Ashoka. Brihadrath will remain Brihadrath. Out of these 4, only Chandragupta Maurya and Bindusara have Greek names. That I will tell you already. So then where have you read any other name for these people? Rashika, you have to text PPT presence here. In foreign text, you are not reading foreign text. We just have to, I'll tell you their names. That is it. 3 names are there, not rocket science. Chandragupta Maurya is called Sandraklotus and Andraklotus. Very simple. Klotus is basically Chandragupta Maurya. And Bindusara is called Amitra Shades. So that's it. I will write their names in the Greek. You see, अगर मेरे को believe नहीं कर सकते तो you believe. See, इधर से Androclotus, and here it says Amitroshes Amitrogata. Listen, everything is in the PPT. You all are impatient, and what happens is when I actually move forward, then you will come from the back. 10 मिनट के गैप से चलते हो तुम लोग mostly. So don't do that. So everything is given in the PPT. Let me teach you something first. So when I'm asking you what I'm teaching you is correct or not, or is fine, I'm trying to move forward only. There, Kishan, there will be overlaps. There will always be overlaps when it comes to rulers because of the fact that there is no specific time period which they used to refer to them in BCC. This is what we have ascertained. There will be always overlap. So stop this and tell me, can I go to the political history of these people? Okay, now, whatever questions will come from Mauryan sources, text match the following. Now, there are 3 things which you need to know very clearly first. I am not going to do a thesis on any one of them because that is not needed. Second, I have no jokes and fables to tell you about how they used to live because that is again immaterial for the examination. And third is only necessary information will be shared with you. So if you want to know how Bindusara went into the park and what he did in that place area, that you read Bindusara, I will be happy to give you a book whole on Bindusara itself. And second thing is, do not watch web series and quote me them for historical sources. Because randomly now, because most of the people have now been used in series, Maharana Pratap and all these people have been used too much. So now they're moving towards ancient Bindusara, Bimbisara. They're now starting to go into that also. So I have a very simple request. Don't quote me soap operas for the history of these people. I really don't care about them. And last but not the least is, whatever is given in the PPT is more than enough. If you want to read further, you are very, very, very interested in their history, I will be happy to tell you that. Totally your call. You email me, sir, I want to read about this person, I'll give you a book. But then don't tell me, sir, 600 pages for one person. That's your problem. Now, propaganda nowadays, whatever is given in the PPT is out of very authentic sources. We will refer to that only. Okay. If Mauryan Empire was so strong, why did it sustain only for 145 years? 145 years is a lot of time. And so strong till this point. Not after that. That is the problem. Okay. Now first understand the geographical expanse. See, Magad started as such a small sector in the eastern area. Thereafter, you have Dhanananda, who we believe used to control. This is Dhanananda. And when Chandragupta Maurya came to power, the expanse became even bigger. And by the time we come to Ashoka, Ashoka's empire was basically the whole of India itself, except for the 3 Sangam polities, which we'll discuss after this module, which is Chera, Chola, Pandya. So Bindusara is in between, basically holding Chandragupta Maurya's area only. The real expander, the real consolidator and expansion of the empire happened under Ashoka. Ashoka is the one who took it to every side. And you already know about one major controversial war which he will fight in this sector, which is called the Kalinga War. It is called the Kalinga War. The Kalinga War was for the Odisha sector, and we'll discuss that when we will come to Dhamma. Now, Chandragupta Maurya, two dates as I told you for his starting point, 324, 321. And he is the one who established the Mauryan Empire in 322. We take it in between. You can take it 324, 321, totally your call. By defeating Dhanananda. Why he left the south part? Because he already had access to both the coasts. He did not need to fight with Chola Chera Pandyas to basically create it in bloody war. Even before he could do that, Kalinga had changed him. Now, in Greek sources, the two names which refer to Chandragupta Maurya are Sandrakotas and Andrakotas. These two terms always refer to in Greek sources Chandragupta Maurya, and he himself started to expand from the what we call as Punjab sector, went into the Magadhan sector, and was in conflict with Seleucus Nicator I, and thereafter was able to manage what we call as the whole sector but through a matrimonial alliance. Multiple texts talk about his stories with how he was in conflict with the Nandas, but the most important point is he is the one who constructed a lake which is going to become a very important point of conversion in or what we call as congruence in history, which is called the Sudarshan Lake. Sudarshan Lake was made in Junagadh, and you have an inscription called the Junagadh inscription. And Junagadh inscription talks about how first Chandragupta Maurya is going to make it, then later it will get destroyed, so Ashoka will reconstruct it. Thereafter there will be one more ruler, Rudradaman. He is coming from the Sakas. He will then again make it and repair it in a way. And even Samudragupta is even referred to have reconstructed it. So this lake itself is a way in which one inscription tells us about four rulers who cover close to 1000 years. So Sudarshan Lake, the construction began under Chandragupta Maurya, and he is the one who basically made it as the first one. Thereafter, when we talk about Bindusara, Bindusara is referred to in Buddhist texts, not a lot, because he is not a Buddhist. While he was a Jain, he's an Ajivik. He will remain an Ajivik most of his life. And he is called Amitroshets in the Greek text because he had taken a title called Amitroghata, the slayers of foes, the one who kills his enemies. So they distorted this to make it Amitroshets. But what is more important is that the relationship with Egypt and with the Greek sector becomes even better under Bindusara, because Antiochus, who's the successor of Seleucus Nicator I, he sends a what we call as ambassador to his court, which is Demicus, and Ptolemy II Philadelphus. This is the ruler of Egypt. He sent a ambassador called Dionysius to his court. So in a way, the internal text talk about two foreigners sitting, and this can show you how the Mauryans were connected to the world. Even Ashokan inscriptions refer to his contemporary rulers across the world, which only shows us internal understanding and connections. So Mauryans in that regard are a very good, or in a way very apt evolution of the Magadhan Empire. So you can see how our story is going forward vis-a-vis this whole concept of how evolution of Indian subcontinent is happening vis-a-vis different aspects of rule, as we can see. Now we know that he's an Ajivik. Now comes Ashoka. Now Ashoka, he even before actually was becoming the king, he was made a governor. He was made the governor of Ujjaini, and therefore there are four basic provinces there. So he's governor of Ujjaini and Takshila before he becomes the ruler itself. Is Bindusara son of Chandragupta? Yes. Chronological terms important for the examination. Yes, chronological terms. They are Chandragupta, Bindusara, Ashoka. What is the chronology? Now, Ashoka is a very interesting figure in Mauryan politics and Mauryan Empire, and he's the most celebrated also for three simple reasons. One is that he was a very able administrator, took the Mauryans to the levels which they should have been. So therefore, after Bindusara's death, he had close to up. Now the question is either 9 or 99 sons. Some texts talk about 9, some talk about 99. Either way, Ashoka killed either 9 or 99 of his sons or his brothers to basically come to power. Ujjaini and Takshila are the areas which he had already been governor of, showed his able-bodied understanding or his very able understanding of administration generally. Now, why is Ashoka remembered so much? Is because it is believed that in his 8th year of ruling, 8th regnal year, he will go for what is called the Kalinga War. And in the Kalinga War, he will injure 1 lakh people and 1.5, he will kill 1 lakh people and 1.5 lakh people will be injured. So close to 2.5 lakh people will get injured because of this war of conquering Kalinga. Kalinga will be conquered and thereafter Ashoka will change and his heart will change. So it is believed that Ashoka turned towards Buddhism after the Kalinga War, after seeing the ravages and seeing the scenes of Ashkalinga, it changed. Now there are multiple interesting facts about him. That this is the expanse of the Mauryas under Ashoka in that regard, having most of the Indian subcontinent, and this Kalinga sector is what really mattered to him, and this is where he killed close to 1.5 lakh to 1 lakh people, and it's a bloody war. That's the basic point. Now, he did make Kalinga part of the empire. He wanted the access to the coast, Odisha, basically Odisha coast. Now there are questions. Don't have to remember this map. I'll tell you what you have to remember, not this map. Now the question is, we believe that Ashoka changed. We believe that Ashoka changed. That is what he's remembered for. That is what apparently he also argues. That I have changed. Now the question which remains is, he had 9 or 99 brothers. He did not change when he was killing his brothers. If it was such a bloody war, then why didn't he stop at the 50,000 mark when 50,000 people were already injured and killed? Why didn't he stop at 1 lakh? Is it 9 or 99? Nirbhay, you would have to go back and ask Bindusara. Some texts say 9, some say 999. Now, he could have stopped at any point of time, but he only stopped after he won the war and then changed. More than that, Ashoka, in a way, also was an Ajivik. So till it suited him, he was an Ajivik. And if he was so horrified by war and violence, then he could have become, like his grandfather, a Jain. He could become a Jain. If you are so anti-ahimsa, then you could have become a Jain. But he went to Buddhism. And ironically, being an Ajivik, he could justify everything which he did. Because what do the Ajiviks believe in? Niyati. So very simply, fate. So now Ashoka can simply say that it was in my fate to kill these 1.5 lakh people. It was in the fate to kill these 99 brothers. So till he wants to expand the empire, when he is expansionary, he is towards Ajivikism. And when he has to consolidate the empire, now he goes to Buddhism. See, people say that Ashoka started to follow Buddhism. No. Ashoka's interpretation of Buddhism is called Dhamma. And people tend to argue that Dhamma is a religious philosophy. But technically, that is not true. What Dhamma is a politico-religious philosophy. Wherein he is using Dhamma as a way of consolidation. When he needs to now say that now nobody should fight, he says, now no one will fight, everybody will now do Dhamma. Till he wanted to expand, he was Anajivik, did not care about Buddhism. And if you will ever see any inscription of what are called the rock edicts of Ashoka, on which we know so much about Dhamma, what Ashoka was a very good PR agent. He was a very good public relations agent, in a sense that he knew that people could remember him for two things, either killing people or for Dhamma. So rather than actually remembering him for Kalinga, we remember him as a person who changed his heart. So everywhere across the empire, he now started to put in these inscriptions, not for the people who he was actually ruling over. No. He put in the edicts for the people who were going to read it after a certain point of time. So he wrote those inscriptions for us, not for his men. And what is even more important is that the major rock edicts, which are on the what we call as borders of the empire, they have a different type of tone, whilst the internal minor rock edicts have a different type of tone. Now you listen to me and you tell me what type of tone I am talking to you. I meet you for the first time, and whilst you are shaking my hand, I tell you that I am Abhishek Mishra and I am the same person who was sent to 40 years in jail for killing 3 people because I get irritated by people very quickly. However, now I have changed and now I am Abhishek Mishra, the person who does not fight with people. Now, what is this type of tone which I am talking about? This is called passive aggressive. This is called passive aggressive. So wherein was there a need for me to tell you that I was 40 years in jail for killing 3 people because I get in a way irritated by people? Or I meet you and I say, hi, my name is Abhishek Mishra and I am the same person who kills people who irritate me. Now I've changed, however. Now I will show you an Ashokan inscription. And you tell me if there was a need for Ashoka writing what he wrote in that. See, these are called the pillar edicts. These are called the minor rock edicts. And these are called the major rock edicts. The language which you see on them is basically Brahmi script with Pali and Prakrit language. But he placed all of these in different areas. For example, Kandhar, in Mansoor, in Mehsera, in Shahbazgadi. And he has all major rock edicts where the empire's borders were. If you basically link all of them, you will get the border of the Mauryan Empire. Minor rock edicts, they're based on size. Minor means small rock, major means large rock. Minor rock edicts are in the main area of the Mauryan Empire, and they have a different tone altogether. I'll come to this before we go to that, but I want you to read one of the terms or one of the Ashokan rock edicts which was written. This is a rock edict which he has written, and you tell me what are the unnecessary lines here. I'm reading out now Ashoka speaking to you after close to 4,000 years. This is what Ashoka wanted to say to you right now when we are discussing the concept of Ashokan rock edicts and Dhamma. He said, 8 years after becoming king, I conquered Kalinga. About 1.5 lakh people were captured and more than lakh of people were killed. This filled me with sorrow. Why? Whenever an independent land is conquered, lakhs of people die and many are taken as prisoners. Brahmins and monks also die. People who are kind to their relatives and friends, to their slaves and their servants die and lose their loved ones. That is why I am sad, and I have decided to observe dharma. Dhamma is a Prakrit word for dharma, and to teach others about it as well. I believe that winning the people through Dhamma is much better than conquering them through force. I am inscribing this message for the future so that my son and my grandson after me should not think about war. Instead, they should try to think about how to spread Dhamma. Now, you tell me one thing. Was this part actually needed? Was this part actually needed? No. He could have easily said that I am following Dhamma, this, that. But he is saying very categorically that I had the capability of killing 1 lakh people. I have killed 1 lakh people. But now I am sad and I have changed. This is called passive aggressive toning. That you are not being aggressive, but you're passively aggressive. That, no, I am the same person who can kill so many people. But ab dil badal gaya. Now I've changed. Now I'm not the same person. This is why we say that Ashoka's Dhamma philosophy was not just his religious understanding. It's a politico-religious understanding which is trying to mold these certain aspects in a certain way. And this is why Ashoka is considered a very interesting personality, because he changed the way we see him. I am not denying that his heart changed. I am not denying the fact that he killed these people. I am not denying about anything. But I'm telling you that he could have totally played it out in a different way. However, he always wanted to remind people, and 2 of such inscriptions were placed in Kalinga also. Why would you remind the people who you killed? And if they don't remember, they will always remember. Why would you remind them that you killed 1.5 lakh people of theirs? He placed 2 such inscriptions in this area. And this is why we consider that Ashoka's inscriptions had a greater agenda than what it was, wherein he was trying to at the same time tell his people what to do. At the same point of time, he was also talking about certain things which people should know. So whoever is entering from this sector into the Indian subcontinent, these edicts were placed very strategically. So for the purpose of the examination, you need to know this, because now UPSC started to ask this. I've given you this table. You have all the edicts which he has ever inscribed, 14 major rock edicts, and thereafter 6 sets of what we call as minor rock edicts. But I've done one more thing. I have these maps. You can use the maps, that will be better. This is the Upinder Singh map. This is the NCERT map. Now you see, from Shahbazgadi to Lampaka to Kandhar to Dhauli and to Jaugada to Brahmagiri to Maski to Sopara, and this area. The problem with this NCERT map is that they have not differentiated between minor and major. So very simply, this is a better map because it gives you a difference between minor and major. Major rock edicts, if you join all major rock edicts, you will find that they are basically controlling the major expanse of the empire, and in between that you have minor rock edicts. Now, what is even more interesting is that the edicts which are facing the northwestern sector, they are not written in Brahmi script, and they are not written in the Brahmi script Prakrit language. They are rather written in either Khoroshti, which is a language, which is a script which is very prevalent in this sector, or Khoroshti Greek language, Greek script, Greek language, which is the most interesting thing, wherein he made sure is there any point for the French government to establish an inscription in the middle of Delhi which is written in French? Will the people understand that? Will the people understand that? No. So Ashoka, what he did was that in most 90% of these, he had what we call as Brahmi. And as I told you, Brahmi is considered the mother of all scripts in India, wherein it has two major families from Punjabi, Devanagari, Gujarati, Bengali, Udiya. There's one, and there's the Telugu, Kannada, Tamil, Malayalam, and Sinhalese. All come out of Brahmi. Brahmi starts to evolve in the modern period. By the time we go to Gupta, post-Gupta, it has now started to give a lot of other what we call as scripts also. And you can see the major what we call as similarities between Brahmi and Devanagari. But he did not just use Brahmi. He also used Khoroshti. He used Khoroshti. Khoroshti is the script. Khoroshti is the script which is used in the Central Asian sector. Central Asian sector. And Khoroshti script, Greek language used to use. Now, this is basically to tell the people who are coming from that side that I am the same person who can kill 1.5 lakh people. So don't think that my Dhamma orientation is the real orientation. See, he could have easily said to everybody that I am Dhamma oriented. No, he always used to say, I'm the same person who killed such people. Now I'm Dhamma. So you should not think that I'm a person who will not fight. More than that, under Dhamma, Ashoka also evolved a very interesting thing, which is that what is just and unjust war? That the righteous war should be fought, the non-righteous war should not be fought. Now, you tell me who decides what is righteous and what is not righteous. You tell me. Who is the one who decides if it is a just war or not a just war? It is Ashoka himself. So, please understand this point. People tend to talk about Dhamma as an innocent strategy, as an innocent concept. It has a lot of loaded messaging within it, which people tend to forget about, which is that it is a politico-religious philosophy and not a religious philosophy. Are we clear about this aspect? That he was using Dhamma as a consolidation strategy and not as a religious philosophy. He was very diplomatical, went for Buddhism, not for Jainism. Obviously, because Jainism would not have allowed him to do any form of war. So he said, no, I need little bit of war. And I'll show you now the major principles of Dhamma. And you will realize that the principles are also actually very flexible according to him. Because according to him, according to Buddhist ahimsa, what really Ashoka thought was vegetarianism. I will not kill animals. But killing for the name of war was again justifiable to him. So if you will look at the principles of Dhamma, you will realize that most of them are very flexible and very, very open to interpretation. See, first principle is the theme of ahimsa, non-injury. However, what does he mean by that? Major Rock Edict 1 tells us he bans animal sacrifices on certain festive gatherings and including killing less animals in the royal kitchens also. He also had sweeping prohibitions on the different animals being killed in different festivals. Now tell me one thing. Which religion has this habit of sacrificing animals from time to time? Animal sacrifice? Very good. In certain contexts, Vedic Brahmanism, ritual and sacrifices, Ashwamedh was nothing but horse sacrifice. Now, do you get the undertone? Do you get the undertone of how Buddhism is also coming through? Because Buddhism is now trying to, in a way, challenge Hinduistic practices or Hindu, what we call as very simply Vedic Brahmanism. And Vedic Brahmanism had this habit of sacrifices. You read the second one, and then you will realize how Buddhism is inbuilt in a way. Good conduct and social responsibilities that included it began to criticize ceremonies performed by people, specifically women, on occasion of illness, marriage, birth, and set forth journey. Which religion again has this habit of rituals and sacrifices before you have certain important moments in your life, or people set out to go somewhere? Which is that religion? Again, Vedic Brahmanism. So you see, early Hinduism or Vedic Brahmanism is getting criticized through Dhamma. And that is the agenda which Buddhism has. He's saying that we should not go into these practices. So his way of ahimsa is again to criticize Vedic Brahmanism. His way of good conduct is also to criticize Vedic Brahmanism. Now you see further that the next concept is, and this is a very important point, mutual respect and concord amongst people of different religions. This is important because he has a very diverse nation. His empire has what we call as Buddhists, Jains, Ajiviks, Vedic Brahmanism. This is basically a consolidatory concept, that he does not want internal conflict amongst communities. He also talked about renunciation of war, but he redefined the concept of righteous conquest. He said, I will renounce warfare, but if needed, I will do righteous conquest for sure. Further, he talks about the Dhammamatras who will spread the message of Dhamma. And Ashoka himself, at different points, tried to talk about in different edicts in multiple texts. He's talked about himself as the main preceptor of Dhamma. Dhamma is his philosophy. Dhamma has nothing to do with Buddhism. Dhamma is the interpretation of Buddhism by Ashoka. Because Ashoka is not basically following the Ashtang Marg. He's not following the core idea of Buddhism. He's just spreading Buddhism, but using Buddhism as a consolidatory capacity. And that is why Buddhism was using Ashoka to talk about Vedic Brahmanism in that regard. So very simply, you can see it's a mutualistic relationship between Buddhism and Ashoka. And for the purpose of the examination, this is a very important table for you. Because in his rock edicts, major rock edicts, he talks about a lot of different things, and this can be asked in the examination. And more than that, you can use this in your essay paper quite a lot, wherein Ashoka talked about certain modern things and modern ideas which you can use vis-a-vis like this. So, for example, Major Rock Edict 1 talks about how we will not go for animal sacrifice and festive gathering. This is a criticism, not important to us. The ones which are important, I will mark. Then comes Rock Edict 2. This is very important because it gives us the location of the southern kingdoms, and this has been asked previously. It talks about the southern kingdoms, Chola, Pandya, and Kelara Putra with Tamrapani. Now understand, he did not use the word Chera. He used the word Kerala Putras. This has been asked in the examination previously, that consider the following, which of the following are referred to in Ashokan edicts. So you should know that he did not call the Cheras because that was not the identity that he knew about it. He just called them Kerala Putras. Tamrapani is a word which is used for Sri Lanka. Thereafter, 3, respect Brahmins and monks, something okay. 4, preaches non-violence and talks about the sound of what is called the drum of war should be replaced by the drum of Dhamma. Okay, good enough. 5, humane and kind treatment of slaves, appointment of Dhammamatras to spread it. Again, not important. Then 6, very important, where he says, I am the all men, all people are my children. Public welfare concept, that I am this paternalistic concept, that I will take care of everybody. All people are my children. Come together and we will consolidate the empire. Thereafter, this can be used by you in the examination 6 and 7. 7th, which is tolerance to other religions. If in the examination essay paper, if they talk about religious violence or religious concept, you can talk about historical context and see and argue that Ashoka in 2nd centuries BCE was talking about tolerance, something which we are forgetting day and day out. Which is, in ancient India, tolerance is something which is a non-negotiable concept itself. You can use this in your essay paper or any other GS paper 2 also. In polity, you can give the historical perspective of how tolerance has been always a part of the Indian subcontinent. Then 8, Dhamma matras does not matter to me. 9, rituals and follow Dhamma. 10, Dhamma is freedom from evil. 11, which is Dhamma being elaborately discussed. 12, how people should live in harmony and peaceful existence. Now, ethics paper also, yes. 13, in this, he refers to not just the southern kingdoms, but other contemporary kings. Syria, Egypt, Macedonia, Greece, and Libya, all are referred to. Don't learn their names, but the edict in which 5 other contemporary rulers are named is this, which is the Rock Edict number 3. So 1, 6, 7, 13. Can you remember these 4? And it will help you for the examination. Just have to go through this PPT once again, and it should be fine. Right? I am giving you food for thought, a little bit of fodder for something which you can write later in that regard. Right? Okay. So our first Dhamma discussion is done. I hope that you will go through these maps also and try to remember these locations. I have given you 3 maps, so you can just go through them again and again. So you have to remember major rock edicts for sure. Major rock edicts, Jaugada, Shishupalgarh, these are in Odisha. Then you have Shahbazgadi, Manshera, and Kandahar. This is in Pakistan and Afghanistan. Then you have Girnar, which is in Gujarat. Sopara, which is in Maharashtra. Sanati, which is basically in modern day border between the Karnataka and Maharashtra border in that regard. And then you have Kalsi, which is in Uttarakhand sector. These are called the major rock edicts. 1 and 6, 1 talks about, you have to remember 1, again you have to remember, okay, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1 second, 1, 2, 2 also. 1, 2, 6, 7, 13. 1, animal sacrifice prohibition. This can be used for animal rights and all. 2, 6. Thereafter, 7, 13. These are the ones which you need to remember. Okay, sir, he was criticizing Vedic. How is he tolerant? Definitely, he didn't fight Vedic. This is not called. This is called It's called subtle criticism. Obviously, it's not fighting, but Buddhism will come through in that regard. Why Ashoka did not expand? Because by the time it came to expansion, he had seen that if he goes for these very powerful southern kingdoms, he would then have to kill a lot of people. He had already seen Kalinga, so he did not want, and he already had access to Bay of Bengal and the Arabian Sea, so there was no point going to the deep south. Okay, now Dhamma, Ashoka, edicts, Dhamma philosophy. Are we clear with regards to how these major, minor, and pillar edicts have a bigger role than what we see vis-a-vis other things? Ashoka's Dhamma was his interpretation of Buddhism, and throughout his life, he kept on talking about Dhamma, 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 spread Dhamma. He was also a very good disciple of Buddhism because he was the one who made a lot of constructed a lot of viharas. Viharas are nothing but monastic establishment sangha where they can stay. And in that regard, it is Upagupta who's considered very important, who changed the orientation of Ashoka in that regard. So very simply, all our major rock edicts, the 1, 2, 6, 7, and 13 are major rock edicts, not minor edicts. Minor edicts are administrative decrees. Are we clear with regards to this? Junagadh inscription is not a rock edict. It is an inscription which has been put in by Chandragupta Maurya. Later we'll have additions over it. Ashoka, Bindusara, Chandragupta Maurya, politics and concepts. Clear? Everyone. Because now I will go into economy and society, and then into administration. Dhamma comes from the word dharma, which is Sanskrit and Prakrit. How they made the map at that time? They did not make the map at that point of time. We have made the map by plotting these on this map. I want everybody's assertion, yes or no. Can we move on? Yes, no. Okay, now let's talk about society. when we talk about the society under Chandragupta was Ashoka's grandfather, yes. When we talk about major, yes, major rock edicts, very important. Minor, there are too many for you to remember. Now, when we talk about society, Megasthenes gives us the first glimpse of society. That there are foreigners, there are philosophers. He had a very different notion of society. That one is philosopher, the other is farmer, other is herdsman, hunter, artisan, trader, soldier, king's council. But this is his understanding, because he is trying to put in India into the Greek understanding. But very controversial thing, or what Megasthenes said was, there was no slavery in India, which is technically not true. We had the Dasa Dasi tradition, and that is there. He was not able to understand what it was. This is the issue with foreign travelers, that they don't understand Indian society. They should. So Megasthenes did understand the fact that there are certain stratas, but he was never able to decode. He had no idea of Varna system also. No idea of Varna system. And this is why he was trying to put in his own understanding over it. But the worst thing which developed in the Indian subcontinent under the Mauryas is untouchability, which is the worst of the worst practices, was actually coming under the most powerful kingdom. We already know that there's the fourfold Varna system, which is Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. But within the Shudra community itself, there was one more community which was further excluded from the society by calling them untouchables, wherein the concept of purity had become so problematic that they could not be even touched, and their shadows were considered to be problematic. So, very simply, untouchability as a practice has been referred to and talked about. Untouchability was not there, Shudra exclusion was there. But the sub-categorization of certain Shudra communities as untouchables is something which Mauryan period starts, and not the Vedic period. This is the hardening of the Varna system into becoming so exclusionary that you have now started to sub-categorize even the socially excluded people. We have references to different type of labor, which means that Dasa Dasi tradition was there because people were working for slave labor in that regard. But women and Shudras, both were excluded further. Though it is believed that women had a little bit more freedom within the heterodox religions, but I have already told you that when it came to the Shudra community and women, both Buddhism and Jainism are not the solution or the best thing which ever happened to women. Jainism was very categorical in saying that women cannot get salvation without being reborn as a man. And Buddha himself was not very keen to add women until unless a lot of pressure was created on him. And therefore, the point of the matter is, yes, the heterodox religions would have had, for example, a little bit better freedom for women once they entered the Sangha, but Brahmanical position of women and Shudras became even more problematic. So, all this is based on a very warped up notion, a very disgusted understanding of purity of blood and purity of being. And I am not here to discuss that and even justify this whole system. The point is that untouchability as a concept, heterodox means non-orthodox religions, which is Buddhism, Jainism, Jaivism. The point is that they are further excluded on certain notions of purity. So when somebody asks you, when did untouchability develop in India? It is Mauryan period. So the society remains the same. Varna system becomes even more problematic with untouchability coming through. The question to why is their own understanding of purity, which is already a very disgusting and very problematic notion of human existence. Are we clear about society? No real major development, only untouchability. Okay, now, when we talk about the economic part, which is trade, we have reference to a lot of blooming or booming internal and external trade. And the reference to multiple foreign dynasties tells us that the trade routes with Central Asia and with the Greeks, because the Seleucid Empire was a very pro Mauryan empire, it meant that India had very good access to Central Asia and West Asia. So we can see that trade, what it started in the Mahajanpada period, was only taken further, and land routes were used very well to basically have very important cities such as Rajgir, Kosambi, Allahabad, and other important cities to develop over a period of time. And this whole sector is a flourishing sector of trade and economic development. So, economy and society, there's no fundamental change. There's no fundamental change. But now comes the administrative aspect, and that is the most important aspect of the Mauryan Empire. So, the Mauryan Empire was very well connected to the Uttar Path, to the southern sector of the Uttar Path, and thereafter the Dakshin Path. So very well connected that ways and very well managed that ways. So we have established the political history, we have established Dhamma, we have established society, economy. Now I want to go into the most important discussion, which is administration, and the heaviest in that regard. And then we end for today. If everybody is with me till this point. They were, Ashoka was against evil practices. Then why didn't he try to end untouchability? Shayank, again, your 2023 constitutional history is saying these practices are accepted by Ashoka. I have told you that there's no revolutionary spirit in Ashoka. He is also the product of his period and of that product of his context. Vedic Brahmanism is what it is, and it will remain like that for a very long time that with regards to that. So then Brahmins are the reason why these degenerated concepts come into setting. It is not Brahmins, but it is Vedic Brahmanism. It is the first religion itself. In a way, Brahmins propagated it. It's not a new surprise. It should not come as a surprise to you. No Mauryan king was following Vedic Brahmanism. Shreyans, that is the irony. Either they're Buddhists, either they're Jains or Ajiviks. Not really Vedic Brahmanism. Economy, as I told you, flourishing internal external trade. Central Asia and West Asia is connected very well. Can I talk about administration? If you need a 5-minute breather, I'll be up for it. Not an issue. 5-minute break you want? He was trying to oppose Vedic Brahmanism to justify his loyal to. Yes, in a way. In a way, Kishan. In a way. Yes, no, yes, no. So that it will not give me any. This is not. Some of you see. Take 5 minutes because I want your attention. So you can't. No, I'm not. This is not a democracy that I'm going to take a poll. So I will decide what will happen. So don't worry about it. Centralized administration. Now, can it be said it's a first secular state? Don't use the word secular for ancient India. Why they didn't practice Vedic Brahmanism? Still, if they follow untouchability, then Brahmanism. Again, Vaishya, I don't know what you're trying to do here. When they didn't practice Vedic Brahmanism, and still if they follow untouchability, then why is Brahmanism blamed? Again, what you're trying to do is justify Brahmanism and the untouchability concept, which makes no sense. It is part of Vedic Brahmanistic practices. It is how Vedas perpetuated it. It is a later Vedic thing, and it is going to be there. You blame anybody, you don't blame anybody, it does not actually change the fact that Indian society had untouchability by the Mauryan period. Okay. 5 minutes breather. 8:55 we come back, and then I want 35 minutes of proper concentration. So pay attention because it's going to become a little bit heavy very quickly. That is why I'm giving you these 5 minutes. So I will see you at 8:55. Don't go anywhere. Don't have to leave the session. 5 minutes. Just think about what I've said till this point. Okay. Can we draw a map with you? This map will take you 5 minutes to draw. 7 minutes you have to write the examination. As it is, ancient medieval is not mains. It's only prelims. So where will you make that map? I'm not sure. Okay, welcome back. Now, Ganesh, firstly, there's going to be no mains question on Ashoka. And obviously, you're not going to start to write like Ashoka is a fraud, this and that. You have to have a balanced answer. Just write politico religious, and that will be enough. But that is the point I'm trying to tell you. This is a discussion for your understanding. This is a prelims oriented area. So you will not get these type of questions. Please understand this point. Okay. Now, this is a generic understanding I'm developing with you. When we talk about administration, there are two types of administration which you will ever see across anywhere. You will see these two types. One is centralized, and the other one is called decentralized. Centralized administration, what happens is you have king, you have officers, and then you have people. The king appoints the officers then work towards the people. But in a way, the king is directly connected to the people because these officers are answerable to the king and can be removed at any point of time. On the other hand, the people and the king are also connected, and here power is concentrated here. Concentrated here. The king is the most powerful body, and he controls everything. In this, no chance of political fragmentation. However, in a decentralized model, there is the king, then there are local administrative or power intermediaries, and then you have the people. Basically, these are local power centers. And the irony of the story here is that the king only controls the local power centers. The local power centers then control the people. So the king only has control over intermediary. And the biggest point is here there is dispersion of power. Some power is here, but real power is here. So in a decentralized model, the king only controls the local power intermediaries. He does not control the people. So the power is not concentrated in one center. And here the story is when king becomes weak, localization and fragmentation of polity. This empire will very quickly break. Will very quickly break. Polity. It will disintegrate. So, just for example, feudalistic or feudalism is considered a decentralized model. Guptas were decentralized. When we will discuss. Mughals and the issues with, see, Mughal and Delhi Sultanate, they have a decentralization tendency, but Ikta and Mansabdari are centralizing rather than decentralizing, which I'll discuss with you. See, after the Mauryas, there was no fully centralized empire, but Delhi Sultanate and Mughals had certain tendencies which made it problematic. That you cannot call it fully decentralized. Marathas under Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj was fully centralized. Only after the Mauryas, it was straight the Marathas under Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj who was fully centralized. But after him, again Marathas became decentralized. So centralization is something which existed in India only in truest form in the Mauryas, and that is why the Mauryas are considered so important. The Mauryan administration is a well organized and truly centralized model. After this point, there has been never been such a proper centralization at the scale it had been. Now, the first thing which Kautilya talks about is what makes a state, which is called the Saptang Rajya theory, the 7 limbs of the state. According to him, if these 7 things come together, then only you have an empire. Then only you have an empire. And what he argued was that you have the Swami, who is nothing but the king. Thereafter, you have other elements which are linked to the king, which make an empire. So Swami is the Lord, the king. Then you have the Amatya. Amatya means the officers or ministers. Thereafter, Janapad, which is the people. Without people, there is no state. Janapads. Then Durga. Durga means fortified capital. Thereafter, Kosha. Kosha means treasury. And then very interestingly, Danda and Mitra. Danda, Mitra, which is justice, and Mitra is ally. Can you tell me which element is missing in this story? In Saptang Rajya, one very major element is missing. Yes, army. See, according to Kautilya, military doesn't really be the most important limb. It's a subsidiary limb of Danda, but it will not be one of the most important limbs of the state itself, which is a very interesting way of understanding politics itself and understanding empire building itself. Which is that if you have all these 6, 7 elements, you may agree or disagree with him, but that is how he defines it. Now comes the most interesting discussion, which is his central administration and his provincial administration, because this is the level of division of power which is actually there. Now, in central administration, he had 4 levels. He had Tirtha, Adhyaksh, Mahamatya, Matya. See, Tirthas, Adhyakshas, Adhyaksha. Then he had 2 types, Amatya and Mahamatyas. See, Mahamatyas, Amatyas. These are 2 same type of officers, but have different concept itself. Mahamatya. Mahatas. Okay. Now, here, now, this person is like the head of the department. Think of him like, for example, cabinet minister. Under him, you have the Adhyaksha. Adhyaksh is basically the person who takes the care of that department at the first level of executive power. So think of it like the secretary, which is like the finance secretary. For example, this is an IAS officer. And thereafter, you have two type of officers. This is officer on special duty, and this is an executive officer. For example, a joint or additional secretary. So basically, you understand it in a way of a head of department. This is the minister. Then adhyakshas are the ones who take care of these important portfolios within the tirtha itself. So this is basically like, for example, a secretary, finance secretary, defense secretary, whatever. Then Mahamatas are special duty officers. Basically, in India, for example, you have certain officers who are attached to the president, to the prime minister, to the vice president. They are called what are called special officers or officers on special duty. And last but not the least is Amatyas, which are basically executive officers. This is the person who is under the Adhyaksha and the one who's running that department itself. So you can see there is a proper division of power in centralized administration. In centralized administration, there's a proper division of power. If you go to the provincial administration, it is even more interesting. You have Uttarpat as one province, Avantirat, which is Ujjain, as the second one, then Tosali, which is the third one, and Dakshinpat as the fourth one. So they've divided into north, south, east, west. So there's basically 4 division in that regard. And when we talk about provincial administration, now there we get another set of terms. So you have the governor, he could be called two things, Kumara or Aryaputra. Kumar when if it is the son of the king, and Aryaputra if he is the relative of the king. So when Ashoka was the provincial governor of Ujjain, he would be called Kumar or Aryaputra. Is this structure borrowed by Mauryans? Is it original or similar portfolio given by British? How can British give this portfolio to the Mauryas? This is a proper Mauryan model. No one has given it to the Mauryas. It's an indigenous model. Please, British come very late. We are, come on, 1757. We are in 324 BCE. So, yes, he would be called a Kumar because he was the son of the king itself. Now, you have Kumara or Aryaputra. That matters on what your status is. This is governor. Then he had 2 officers. One for urban and the other for rural. This is called Pardeshika and this is called Rajuka. It was a job of the Pardeshika to go every 5 years and check on the ground what is happening whilst taking care of this urban sector. But it's not that they are the last line. Both of them have another set of officers called the Yukta, who's basically the secretary of these two, who is going to take care of everything, and a Thanika and a Gopa. Basically, these 3 officers together help them administer. And the lowest level, he have the Gramika, which is the headman. So they will both have a Yukta, a Gopa, and a Thanika. They will take care of his day-to-day administration when it comes to money and what we call as concept of administration. And thereafter, under both you will have Gramikas. So you can see that the level of sophistication in the administration is actually very, very, very interesting and very elaborate. Now, this is the one part wherein you need to know these terms. Now, for the purpose of the examination, you also need to know what are the different tirthas. But till this point, everybody is with me. The concept of central and provincial administration, and along with the difference between centralized and decentralized. Yes? Provincial is after you, central would be in Patliputra, and provincial is how the whole the whole state and center. Think of it like that. Now, what are the different tirthas which were there? Here again, we only have to remember the ones which are important for the examination. See, Mantri, minister, easy to remember. Purohit, chief priest, easy to remember. Senapati, military commander, everybody knows. Yuvraj, crown prince, everybody knows. The ones which are obvious, we obviously don't learn. Now, the ones which are close to each other are problematic. For example, Samaharta and Sanidhata. Why? Because both are very close administrative responsibility. Chief collector of taxes, treasury chief. This would be the chief of IT department, and he is the chief of RBI governor. Think of it like this. This is the difference between them. Samaharta and Sanidhata. Thereafter, you have the Nayak who takes care of the city, which is again important, city constable. Then Yavaharika is chief justice. Dandapal is again very easy because he's the Dandapal is still a word till is used today, which is police chief in that regard. So here you have to remember Sanidhata, what is called Samaharta and Sanidhata, the Nayak, and one more, Yavaharika, which is chief justice. Yavaharika, chief of this word harem. Harem is a English word which is used for women's quarter. Women's quarters. So don't take it in the negative connotation. Chief of women's quarters in that regard, which is a term used later for a different connotation. We use it in a different connotation. Thereafter, now comes the Adhyaksha. Now, very simply, Dhaksha is common to all of them. You don't have to remember that. But you have to remember some of the departments for match the following type questions. So, for example, Akara. Akara is mines and minerals. But what is a saving grace here is that there are a little bit of interesting, what we call as correlations. So, for example, Akara, Akshpala accounts. Now, what we call Lakshana. Lakshana is a word which has been used previously for coins, important. Now, Panya, trade and commerce. Then, Sita, crown land. Why have they used the word Sita for crown land? What is the connection between the word Sita and land? The Ramayana, which is that Sita ji is considered the daughter of the Bhumi or the land itself. So, Sita, that is the connection between Sita and crown land. So you can see how they are creating a certain understanding like that. Now, Shulk, everybody till today knows that Shulk means customs and tolls. And thereafter, the last one which you have to remember is Patana, ports. Now, you will say, sir, do you have to remember this? Obviously. Obviously, you have to remember it because this can be asked in match the following. Remember, this much is enough. How do you learn it? One each day. You will never forget it. You have to do it in the 15-minute rule concept that every day, every morning, 15 minutes, every evening, 15 minutes. You should take out a set of facts which you want to learn them in the morning, revise them in the evening. And this will work, and it has worked for a lot of people. Thereafter, in Mahamatas, again, I am not going to make you learn all of them. Dhammamata is very simple, straightforward. You have to take a Dona assessment. So Dona Maka, which is assessment officer who goes and assesses the land itself. And thereafter, you have the Amta. Amta means frontier areas. Ant means end. So Amta means end officer, foreign officer, frontier areas in that regard. And last but not the least, there were also judicial departments and spying departments. Don't have to learn the names here, but there are different type of courts also. And proper spying concept has been created under which the warriors are having intelligence on everybody around them, be it Chera Choda or Pandyas. Now, with this, we finish the administrative history of the Mauryas also. And as I said, because the economy is directly controlled by the state, there were even different officers for specific things. For example, Akara Daksha for mining, Loha Daksha for metallurgy. But what is even more important is they were also producing some goods which could only be produced by the state, which is called Rajpanya, which is that only the state can produce. So you have to remember, Bhaga has this word changed since the Vedic period. Has this word changed since the Vedic period? No. So Bhaga still remains land revenue. Vartani is again till today used as a tax on road. Nishkarma is export duty on trade. And Vishti is a very important concept. Vishti is basically forced labor or labor to pay off debt. So if you go to a restaurant, eat like anything, and thereafter you don't have money to pay, what will that restaurant make you do? They will make you wash the utensils. So when you're washing that utensil, it is vishti. You are paying off your debt via labor. That is called vishti, forced labor. So Bhaga has changed from 1/6 1/10. The increase is there from to 1/4 1/6, but the concept remains the same. Now the question is what to do with all this information. In the examination, you can get match the following questions, and they can ask you to, or in a way, they can ask you questions with regards to the concept of what the administrative nature was. Now, very simply, tomorrow we talk about post-Mauryans. That is a very important discussion. But as of right now, we have discussed Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, Indus Valley civilization, the Vedic, and the Mahajanpadas. And we've added now another sector, which is Mauryas. Mauryas, if I have to tell you, they are centralized, Dhamma, concept of Ashoka, and administrative system with basic sources. This is the only thing which you need to remember. I told you there is factual data here, and you can't do anything about it. This is the last major factual area because they have very elaborate administrative order, and Alexander in between is the story. Hereafter, when we come back tomorrow, we discuss the post-Mauryas again, what area out of which a lot of questions come because there are multiple dynasties there, and we'll discuss the concept of Saka era, the concept of Vikram era, the concept of land grants, Satavahanas, Kushanas, Indo-Greeks, Sakas, Shungas, everything tomorrow. So the questions from this area have not come till this point. Fortunately, when it comes to administrative system, they've not asked match the following, but that is the only type of question which can be made. So with this, we stop here today. If you don't have a question, you can leave the session. I will take the questions henceforth. Tomorrow, same time, we start a very important module. Tomorrow, day after, we will finish the concept of ancient. Right? Okay. Factual part is difficult, but the only way you can do it is revision. There's no other way you can manage. It is only revision which can help you. There is no golden bullet or silver bullet for this. You have to revise and do it. So if I'm teaching you 80% of conceptual, 20% factual, I can expect that you will do it. The level of facts will increase in certain areas and it will decrease in certain areas. So don't say that it is factual, because polity articles are factual, geography, mountain ranges, and other things are factual. In every subject, you do facts. But you can't just be biased to say that I will not learn history facts, because you learn articles, you learn mountain ranges, you learn passes, you learn rivers, you learn forests, you learn different aspects about the Indian constitution. So don't say that there are no facts in anything else you do. Everything, everywhere, UPSC is factual. But still, 20% facts, 15 minutes rule you have to apply. And you have, if I am asking you to learn 100 facts in 365 days or 200 days, it's not a lot. It's not a lot if you do 2 to 3 every day. That's it. Right? Okay. So email ID you want, abhishek.mishra19@byju's.com. Kishan, I'll be here in class, not a holiday, unfortunately. No, Ganesh, there's no categorical reason why he did not write Cheras. Kerala Putras, because they would have introduced themselves as that only. Okay. Thank you. Take care. I'll see you tomorrow, same time. Please share mains practice question from this topic. Rashika, listen to me. Please listen to me. Please listen to me. Ancient India is mains, not mains oriented. It is prelims oriented. There are no mains questions which can be made out of ancient and medieval except for an anomaly here. So there is no mains question which is going to come from here. Okay. I'll try to do that, Kishan. I have evening class also. That is the problem. So I take up the emails one go itself. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. See you tomorrow. How to overcome others' comparison, embrace self-authentication, own self. Why are you comparing yourself to others? Why? Everyone is different. Every person is different. Everyone's capacity is different. Everyone's story is different. So if you will watch too many videos, this is what is going to happen. That topper did that topper did that topper did this, that topper did that. Nobody knows how to clear this examination until you clear it. So stop this very bad habit which has developed in the past 1-2 years, which is to watch others to assess yourself. That's not the way. Kirti, I would ask you to stay away from that book. I know your college teacher may have. What college is this, Kirti? Firstly, Sonali Bansal, I've heard about her book. I've heard a very, very bad reviews about that book also. I've seen that book. It's okay. If you can stay away from it, it will be helpful. As it is, it's not UPSC oriented. But you do tell me what college is this, because that will give me an understanding. That is, Shreyank, because of what we call as pronunciation concept. Krishna becomes Krishna. That is to basically hold the pronunciation together. Sir is Mukesh sir. अरे आई एम अभिषेक मिश्रा. अभी तक मुकेश समझ. वाह भाई वाह. वाह निर्भय. वाह. So you were thinking I am Mukesh झा. अच्छा मैंने नाम लिख दिया. That is why you're like अच्छा I am अभिषेक sir. बरेली कॉलेज. हाँ वो यूपी में. It is a book which goes quite a lot. Kriti, if you use it, okay, but stay away from things which are contradictory. Nirbhay, I'm Abhishek Mishra, not Mukesh Jha. So sir, I am asking about Mukesh sir. He's not replying. So how he's in the next studio teaching geography? How do I know that he's replying or not? So मैं विनोद हूँ. I was Vinod. Okay. Again, how can I tell you if he was not well yesterday? He's here today. He will be taking class today. Okay. I don't know, Alok. It shouldn't expire. Because just looking like a. How to improve PLIF score? Ambika, practice. The more you'll practice, you'll become better. No, Anshu, give us a week. Though I'm not responsible for it, but I understand your plight. Give us a week. There is something which is coming. That is for sure. So there's a light in the end of the tunnel. I can promise you that at least. Okay. So see you tomorrow, same time. Tomorrow be ready for a very interesting section. But again, multiple dynasties. You have to be a little bit more cautious when you do it. Now ancient is not coming in mains directly, indirectly. Ashish, until unless this year again it comes, We will not say that ancient is coming in. It was not an ancient question. It's a question which is a mix of social issues and history. They were legitimate in asking it. It's justified. But I teach you that much level that you can manage that type of question. But until as it becomes a standard process, we can't change our pattern for one year itself. Okay. Well, Piyush, see you. Bye bye.